Welcome to another episode of J&M Solve the World.
I'm James.
And I'm Matt. And we have a special guest with us tonight.
Mr. Andy, or otherwise known as Bullwinkle.
Yeah, I'll come at Bullwinkle.
Good to have you here, Andy. How you doing, bud?
Oh, so far so good. I'm just glad to be asked to be on this podcast.
Well,
We do what we can. Tonight's topic will be the big four of thrash metal.
the big four of thrash metal. Oh my God, what? Who could be the big four of thrash metal?
Well, the big four is, of course, Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer.
Yeah. It's state law. You have to say it like that.
I mean, I
think it's federal law.
Yeah, at this point, I believe it's federal law.
Yeah.
You can't just say Slayer.
No.
Slayer. So to kick it off, we'll start with each band, and we'll, in no particular order, of course. The most dedicated fans is obviously Slayer fans.
Without a doubt. I mean, those guys are freaking hardcore, It's like what Jim Brewer said, it's like going to a Slayer concert, it's like when the Slayer hits the stage, they unleash the people from... It's like Lord of the Rings or some shit, But, yeah, their fans are freaking dedicated,
And they're carving Slayer into their arm and their chest. And
various body parts.
Slayer used it for one of their album covers.
They did, yeah.
A fan cut Slayer into his arm.
Yeah. I don't like tattoo it, but I wouldn't carve it in my arm with a,
Knife either. No, I wouldn't do that either.
I can't say anything about tattooing a band's logo. I've done that.
Where did that go? Oh, yeah.
My little Cowboys from Hell right there.
Yeah.
Take a look at that. Big
Little Dime Dad Girl. And wait, there's a razor blade too.
Yep.
Keep looking.
No, I said I would tattoo. I might tattoo their name. I'm not that big of a fan to do it, but I would do that before I carve their freaking name with a knife.
I'd allow somebody else to inflict pain on my body.
Yeah.
For a small nominal fee.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to pay you money to inflict pain on me.
I said it out loud. Sorry, my bad.
Shout out to my nephew Howie, and then there's that. That's his new catchphrase now.
Nice.
What?
And then there's that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moving on, we'll go to the other side of the world or the country, to Anthrax.
Right.
Anthrax is a New York-based band, and they actually helped Metallica. When Metallica came to New York to record their first album with John and Mark Izzy with Megaforce Records, Anthrax gave them a toaster oven and whatnot, because where they were staying had dick.
Yeah, they had a Playmate cooler and had hand sandwiches.
Right, and Anthrax is always, in my opinion, they've always seemed like they're having a fucking great time.
Right. I hate to use this analogy because there's two different genres of music, but of metal. They're like the Poison of thrash, kind of. They're having a good time. They're not writing everything about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but they're up there having a good time.
Right, and if you break down Poison, they're CeCe DeVille, Ricky Rocket. They are great musicians.
Oh yeah.
Anthrax's music is amazing, and they're writing about different stuff. But yeah,
Right.
I could see they're out there having a great time.
They look like they're having fun, whereas Slayer looks like they want to kill somebody.
Yeah, and which moves on to Megadeth, who were, the biggest political band out of the big four.
Right.
If it wasn't for politics, they probably wouldn't have a fucking career.
Well, they can thank Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Basically, because they heard a lot of shit about, you know.
Reagan and Bush Sr.
Yep.
You know, I mean, they used an outtake from his speech in front of Congress. Congress asked me to raise taxes, and I'll say, no, read my lips.
Yep. No new taxes.
Right. And we see what happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that went, that went to shit
You know,
real quick.
and Megadeth
Pardon
had
my
a
language.
revolving door of drummers and guitar players.
Right.
You know, through the 80s and the 90s and the first part of the millennium.
Well, actually, they settled down at the end of the 80s with the Rust in Peace.
Right.
And then Countdown and
Cryptic
Euthanasia.
Rain. Yeah,
Cryptic
Euthanasia.
Rain, yeah. You know, they had the same group of guys, and personally, that's my favorite
Iteration.
of them, and that's
Yeah.
why I seen them live. I seen them live 3 times, I think, during that iteration of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the old stuff didn't suffer. I mean, they played Peace Cells and the stuff off there, you know, the early albums, and it was great.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, Marty Friedman was phenomenal on the guitar.
Right. And, you know, and then we move on to the biggest band of all time, the band that has played all 7 continents, the band that has played damn near every country, sold out every arena, every stadium. Metallica. I mean, what more could be said?
Yeah, they were, you know, of the big 4, they were the ones that made it the biggest. I mean, without a doubt, they were, just because of record sales,
Right.
Ticket sales. I mean, you know, I see Megadeth and Metallica probably about a year apart, and Megadeth was playing a sold-out show in Springfield for 3,600 people.
Right.
Metallica was playing a sold-out arena at 18,000 or 20,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Right, and you know, and Metallica was the last ones to make a video and release it on
Right.
TV. So I mean, they became, you know, the juggernaut that they are through word of mouth.
Exactly.
You know, none of those bands were getting airplay back in the 80s.
oh, and before Napster, tape dubbing, people were sharing
That's
their
another
tapes.
story.
But I mean, you know, they were one of the first ones to, like, they owned their masters. They started their own music company that just produced their music.
Their first record deal was crap.
Yeah, the
I mean-
Megaforce deal. I mean, it was
Well, the
more than
Meg-
what they were getting.
Well, the Megaforce, but the next one they signed.
Elektra
Yeah.
was fucking
But
Christ.
yeah, I mean, they kind of got the short end on that, but then like I say, they figured it out.
Right,
I mean,
and-
which a lot of, I mean,
They fine-tuned it.
right. If you're a 18, 20, 22-year-old kid and some record company says, we're going to give you $1 million to sign, you're like, hell yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
then you don't realize that's a loan.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Who knew?
you know, to go back to, you know, at the beginning when we had the band going.
Right.
I mean, we were Chris and I were in our mid-20s. Scott, the drummer, was in his late 20s.
Yeah.
I believe you were in your
I was still in my, well, I turned 30 that first year.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but still, if somebody would have came and said, "Hey, man, here's $1 million record deal," we would have been like, "Fuck yes!"
We're going on tour. Hell yeah.
You were saying, give me a knife, I'll sign it in blood.
Yeah. I'll side slayer in my arm for that.
Okay.
What the hell?
And back in the day, exactly that's how bands made their money, was being on tour.
They were
Well,
thinking,
it's-
hey,
it's come full circle,
we're going to be
because-
big.
That's how they make their money today. Because they ain't selling no records today.
Right.
They're streaming and shit.
You know, right? And
I heard a deal the other day. I can't remember what I was listening to. Might have been Joe Rogan. Shout out Joe Rogan.
yeah,
But they were talking about every T-shirt a band sells makes them as much money as like 5,000 streams.
right.
You know, so I mean, yeah, the music's out there. Every time you stream it, they get a little piece,
Right.
but it takes a lot.
And I mean, you know, not to get off on a tangent on that, but I mean,
Right.
the last time that I actually bought music,
Mhm.
because I pay for, a certain fruit music.
Right.
I pay for my daughter and I. I pay so much.
I pay so much for one, that's named after a jungle.
Right.
Yeah.
I pay for satellite radio.
Mhm.
And each one of those, there's royalties that are paid.
Right.
God, I'm one person, but how many people have satellite radio?
Yeah. Everybody.
You know,
I mean, if you got a satellite television, whether it be either one of the two networks,
Mhm.
you've got satellite radio on your television.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not the same company, but
Right.
you're still paying royalties.
Yeah,
for that.
'cause you got to pay for the service. So yeah.
right.
But let's get back on topic here. Metallica is by far the let's maybe I don't want to say the best, but they are the most
The biggest.
the biggest, the most successful.
There it is. The most successful of the big
successful.
four.
And even though there's a lot of old school Metallica fans that said, well, they sold out and they wrote the Black Album and blah blah blah,
Now, I've also
But-
heard that they sold out whenever they, cut their hair.
Well, yeah.
In which, who cares about cutting your hair?
Yeah.
As long as the music
Well,
is there.
Yeah.
right. But at the time, if you were in a metal band, if you were in a rock band, you had long hair.
You had long hair and,
And, I mean,
whatever.
you go back to the Alice in Chains Unplugged. Mike Inez wrote on his bass, "Friends don't let friends get friends' haircuts."
Right.
And that was because Metallica was in the audience after they had cut their hair.
But didn't Tommy Lee do the metal fro like Phil had, like before Metallica cut their hair?
Yeah, well, he shaved. He had the metal mohawk
Yeah.
thing going on.
Metal mohawk.
And Phil shaved his head, like
What?
completely shaved his head
Right.
before. And it wasn't because he was going bald or anything like that. No, he
No.
just decided to shave his head. In the Pantera home video, without going off on a tangent, Phil shaves
Seems like we
Tommy
do that a
Lee's
lot.
head
Yeah.
in the video.
Right.
So,
Well,
but-
say that again.
Phil-
For me.
Phil from Pantera
Yeah.
shaved his head
Okay.
long before anybody else did. And he wasn't going bald. He didn't have a receding hairline.
Right. No.
He just shaved it.
It just
And in one of the Pantera home videos, Phil is actually shaving Tommy Lee's head. Like
Okay.
completely shaved off. It was long before
Yeah.
anybody was ever doing that.
Yeah.
But, it's just, hair doesn't make a musician, hair doesn't make a band.
okay.
Boy, I hope not.
Okay. I'm gonna get Kerry King, guitarist of Slayer.
Yes.
Right, I do have the right, Kerry King,
Oh, yeah.
guitarist.
Yep.
He was bald, wasn't
Yeah.
Well,
he shaved
he? At
his
one
head.
time.
Well, no, he
He
still,
still is.
Yeah, he
because
shaved
his
his
hair was
Right.
going away like ours did.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
He no longer had 4 head, it became 5 head, then 6 head, and then.
No, now he just has one.
Well, right, and his
know what
head-
I'm talking about
yeah,
here,
his
right?
head is tattooed.
And whatever, tattooed, I'm not worried about tattoo, but it doesn't matter if you have long hair down to your ass
Right.
or, shoulder length. It's the music.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're talking Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, or Slayer. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
As long as the music is still there. Now, if you change that, then you can say, oh, he shaved his head, and then they tuned it down or whatever.
Mm. Well, they
So-
cut their hair and they dressed up like
They started wearing, Kirk started wearing eyeliner
and they started dressing kind of like Cuban mafia guys
Yeah.
or some shit. And,
Yeah.
Andy, what was that story you was telling us earlier today about the Black Album for you?
Well, I grew up on 80s country music. I'm a 73 model. Grew up on country music. Alabama, Hank Jr., music from that era, country music. And then I meet this old boy, and he has a Metallica Black Album. Plays it for me. He's got home stereo, headphones. I've got them on. It's like, okay, I like this. I listened to the whole album and wow. And then I get to,
liner notes,
whatever, cell phones and shit like that. Then there's, you guys will have to help me out. And Justice for All, Sanitarium,
puppets,
For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Red Lightning.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah, opened up a whole new world.
I didn't know anything about this.
Right.
Okay, whenever I was a kid on the school bus, I had this metal magazine,
Yeah.
that had,
Metal Edge, Hip Raider, Rip Magazine.
yeah, something like that. I'm looking at it like,
Circus.
oh shit. My eyeballs, ding, oh shit. This is not what I'm used to seeing, and it almost, scared me, like, do I need to keep looking at this? It's like,
Then you open it up and see Rita Ford and you're like, yeah, I'm keeping looking.
adamant, it had a,
That's a whole new podcast.
well,
Yeah,
but it's like, oh shit, wait a minute. As far as seeing them, but seeing them and hearing the music is two different things.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was introduced to, Metallica,
Yeah.
Megadeth. It got into Anthrax. Not so much Slayer. I'm not against Slayer, but I listen to
Kerry, we love you, man. Seriously.
Jeff Hanneman, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Yep. Tommy Araya, happy birthday. You said birthday last week.
Who?
Tom Araya,
Tom Araya.
lead singer.
Oh,
bass player.
yeah, Tom Robb, yeah.
61.
Well, I think the last time I seen him, gray-headed, long hair.
Yeah.
Hats off to you, son. Keep going.
Bastard, keeping your hair at that age.
Yeah.
Well, look at Zach Wild,
No,
the Viking himself.
Look, Black Label Society.
But what you're saying is basically the Black Album for you.
Yeah,
What turned you on to
that's
heavy
what
metal.
turned me on to, there was another album, and I can't call the name of it to save my life or save my ass from an ass whooping. But it was heavier than the four that we're talking about right now.
Oh,
And I'm
like Napalm Death or something.
or no, not
Killer Dwarves.
Killer Dwarves.
no, it was something,
I actually owned a Killer Dwarves tape at one time.
it was something heavier than that. But on my Killer Dwarves, I've heard a couple of their songs.
Sepultura?
Biohazard.
It,
Prong.
Sepultura or Biohazard, it may have been one of them two.
Yeah.
I can't remember which
Yeah.
one. But
Dead embryonic cells.
Chaos AD.
This may not be what I'm supposed to talk about, but I can listen to anything from ABBA to ZZ Top
Oh, see, you lost me at ABBA.
and anything in between.
Hey, I can look at ABBA back in the 70s.
Anything from ABBA to ZZ Top, and
My wife's got a
And-
bad habit of finding that damn Mamma Mia movie and watching it all the time.
any genre music,
Shout out, sweetheart, I love you.
from A to Z,
Right.
But I know I'm getting off on the wrong tangent
Oh, no, I mean-
for what we're talking about here.
Well, we're talking music, and I grew up watching the Grand Ole Opry
Right.
Oh yeah.
and Hee Haw. But then my folks were also cool that they liked all kinds of music, and we watched American Bandstand. We watched the Midnight Special, and we watched Don Kirshner's rock concert. That was the first time I seen Kiss, was on the Midnight Special in like 1974, and scared the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah.
Like 8 years old. I'm like, I
what
like
the hell?
the music, but these guys are weird.
But did you watch Soul Train?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I tell you what, I mean, again, another podcast topic, but
Right. You know, but
the women on Soul Train.
Well, yeah.
But as far as this podcast, Metallica was the one that, you know, brought me into, you know.
So there you go, all you people out there that don't like anything from the Black Album on. That's why he's a metalhead, and we're glad to have him in the family.
Yeah.
I grew up a country. Wouldn't listen to anything but country. But then,
I'm sorry.
no, hear me out. I wouldn't listen to anything but country, but until this friend of mine, he said, here, listen to this. Okay. And I've been hooked ever since. And I listen to the Statler Brothers, and then go to Judas Priest, Painkiller.
When I was on the radio in high school,
That quick.
KBFL in Buffalo, 99.9 on your FM dial, by the way.
It is now a sports station.
Oh my God.
Yep. I love the jock.
But
I was
you would-
getting ready
you
to
would
ask
hear-
that, say that. Go ahead.
On my weekly show on Wednesday nights from 6:30 to 10, you would hear like Kid and Play. You would hear, Criss Cross, and then it would go to Metallica. And you'd hear Anthrax, and then you'd hear local favorites, Naked Zoo. And there was no rhyme or reason to any of the music I played, but it all centered around the big four, because Puppets was the first Metallica album that I ever heard. Among the Living was the first Anthrax album I ever heard. The Rain and Blood EP was the first Slayer album I ever heard.
Right.
Peace Sells was the first Megadeth album I ever heard. So, it's like those albums set the bar, and I lost out a little bit on Slayer, after Seasons in the Abyss.
Right.
But, Megadeth comes and goes. Metallica, I know every Metallica album is going to be a good album. I know every Anthrax album is going to be a good album, regardless of whether they're changing the singers or not, because I love the John Bush stuff. I love the Joey Belladonna stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And Joey, how? He's gotten better with age.
Yeah.
I mean, his vocals are still on top.
Yeah, the only time I've got to see Anthrax was with John Bush
Right.
at a ball club where we played,
Oh my God.
and it was freaking packed, and it was awesome.
It was. It really,
I'd love to see all those bands in a club of about 900 people.
right.
Just so you could, see the sweat and
Right.
no, and you're
Exactly.
just there.
Or you could actually see it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Not just watch the big screen because you're
Right.
3 football fields back.
Right.
Because you're in the cheap seats.
No, we talked about the success of Metallica, but all those bands have played huge freaking festivals.
Right.
Megadeth, they played some huge festivals in Brazil, 300,000-400,000
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Right.
I wasn't downgrading Megadeth. I'm just saying at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I seen them, and honestly, Megadeth, it's here with me whether I like Megadeth or Metallica better.
Right.
I probably like more the later Megadeth than I have the later Metallica.
Okay.
Saint Anger, I'm sorry, I just a couple songs, but it's like
There's tracks on Saint Anger that I really like, but at the same time, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It was.
But don't get me wrong, I love Anthrax. Caught in the Mosh comes on, I'm cranking that shit.
I tell you what. But I know here in a couple of months, I, and hopefully you, will be seeing Anthrax and Black Label in fucking Kansas City.
Well, just plan on it. I'll make a plan, and that's not a big deal, you know. We'll,
On that note, we're gonna call it for this evening. You guys have a great time. I've been Matt.
I've been James.
And that's...
I'm Andy, or Bullwinkle, whatever you want to call me. Just don't call me late for supper.
This
Sorry.
has been J&M Solve the World.
Everybody, be cool. Rock on.
Ha ha.